Good afternoon. On behalf of the Pete DuPont Freedom Foundation, I would like to welcome you to our May E3 Lunch and Learn. My name is Stephanie Johnny, and I'm currently the interim executive director of the foundation. Also joining me are several members of the foundation's board, including our board chair, Thayer DuPont. Additionally, we are joined by a few of our partners for E3, who I'm sure will be adding their input throughout today's discussion. So former Governor Pete DuPont possessed a clear vision and enthusiasm for innovative approaches to old problems, whether pushing for lower and fairer taxes, more effective government spending, greater choice in education, or eliminating the stifling impact of overly burdensome regulation. Pete worked to empower individuals, families, and businesses. We are still very saddened by the loss of the former governor just a few weeks ago, and the foundation is committed to carrying out the legacy of Pete DuPont by focusing on the opportunities for success in Delaware to ultimately make Delaware a better place to live, work, and raise a family. One of the several ways we are working towards achieving our mission is through the equitable entrepreneurial ecosystem, also referred to as E3. E3, launched in March of 2020, was developed with support from Barclays and in partnership with the Wilmington Alliance to help entrepreneurs accelerate their business by providing a process where experienced advisors and service providers create a clear, supportive, and sustainable pathway to success that includes a comprehensive wraparound support structure for the entrepreneur. We have launched a localized ecosystem model with the word equitable being the key. E3 complements and works in tandem with our Reinventing Delaware program, working to create conditions for success for entrepreneurs and innovators across all communities. And through E3, we're able to emphasize our support for minority-owned small businesses. The foundation has wrapped up our first open application cycle in Newcastle County with plans to launch open application cycles downstate this summer. And if you have not already done so, please visit our website and subscribe to our e-newsletter for important updates and announcements. Now, I am very excited to introduce our guests for today, Paul McConnell and Mac Macleod, who are together in the room that they met.
And both vaccinated.
Both vaccinated, great to hear. So I'll just do some brief introductions. Paul McConnell is a Delaware native and University of Delaware alumni. He has been a significant contributor within the commercial real estate industry in and around Delaware for over 40 years. Paul's career began right after his graduation from UD when he and his brother formed McConnell Brothers, and together they bought, renovated, and sold residential properties. Paul went on to develop office, residential, commercial, and industrial properties totaling to over 5 million square feet of property in the tri-state area. In 1989, he started McConnell Development, and in 2000, McConnell Johnson Real Estate. Paul is currently a member of the Delaware Business Roundtable and one of the founders of the Wilmington Alliance, an essential partner for the foundation's E3 initiative. Paul also serves on the advisory board for the Philadelphia Airport and for several private companies and schools, including the St. Edmunds Academy, where he and his wife built the Science Center. As a champion for entrepreneurship, Paul has been an avid angel investor and valued mentor to the local startup community. In 2013, Paul started 1330 Innovation in Wilmington, developing one of the first community-based innovation centers. Most recently, Paul funded and helped launch Dual School, an innovative program that enables high school students to create their own entrepreneurial projects that improve their local communities. Today, Paul has generously dedicated time to join us in discussing the importance of entrepreneurial championship and to talk to us about how he developed his relationship with one of his mentees, Mac Macleod. Mac is the co-founder and CEO of Carvertise, a media company that specializes in rideshare advertising. Founded in 2012, Mac has grown Carvertise into a multi-million-dollar company with 115% year-over-year organic growth and 300 plus brand partners around the US, with 9 out of the 10 brand partners who run more than one campaign. Carvertise has a data network of 550,000 drivers and was named DIW's Startup of the Year and has been covered by major press outlets, including Forbes, NBC, CBS, and others. Carvertise was also recently named an Inc. 5000 fastest growing company and is proudly headquartered in Wilmington. Mac was a recipient of Delaware SBA's 2016 Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award, as well as the Philadelphia Business Journal's Minority Business Leader Rising Star Award. And Mac currently serves on the boards for the Delaware State Chamber of Commerce and Christiana Care. While continuing to grow his very successful business, Mac has followed his mentor's footsteps by dedicating time to share his knowledge and connections with other rising entrepreneurs, such as one of the foundation's E3 Kent County businesses, First Statehood and Duct. So thank you very much for joining us today. Did I miss anything?
No, too much. Yeah. No, that was good. That was great. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes,
Perfect. So before we fully shift the show over to you guys, I just want to remind our audience to utilize the raise hand feature to directly engage and to list your questions in the Q&A feature so that we can ensure we get to everyone's questions. Now, gentlemen, the floor is yours. Please talk to us about your journey as entrepreneurs and how you ended up in this mentor-mentee relationship.
Well, to start, Mac came to see me, and he was so enthusiastic, as you could probably, if you know him personally, and he pitched me, and I have to tell you, we pretty much, we just connected in ways that were really, really super. And got involved with the business right away, and it was, and I'm still involved to this day. And we have our board meeting coming up next week, and we've watched this company grow, amazing throughout these last 6 years.
Yeah, it's
been
fun.
Great. And we work with Mac, but we also work with other members of his team too. So everybody does a little bit differently. I've been in sales pretty much my whole life. So I work with his partner, Greg, a lot. We talk about, different aspects of sales, how to work with it, especially building relationships around, new customers, things like that.
Hey, Stephanie, I think you're on mute.
Yes, I muted myself. So how were you initially introduced and how did the conversation initially start?
I'll tell you, so again, it's just the connections. So I had a buddy at University of Delaware. His name was Nikhil Paul. He started a startup called InfoShare. And this was 8 years ago, 7 years ago, when I was still a student at UD. And I told him what we were building at the time. Carvertise was called Penguin Ads. And, nonsensical name. That's a topic for a discussion for a different time. And he put me in touch with, hey, you've got to talk to Ernie about what you're building. And Ernie was, as a business leader in the state, he was also seen as a kind of an entrepreneurship champion. And I talked with Ernie. In fact, we actually met in this building in the lobby, in the cafe. And then he said, oh, you got to talk to Paul. So it was just like bing, 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 just working through people's networks, and in a great way, because they wanted to put you in touch with the right people when they saw what you're working on was cool and you believed in what you're doing. So Paul and I met in this room, 7 years ago, and it's just been a great friendship and mentorship, and ever since. And he's still very involved with the company.
Well, and especially with coming together two UD grads, and even though I'm at 74 and he's at 16, it's pretty fun. At 2074, I'm like 100 years old compared to him. But at the same time, we've really been connected as best we can with all the entrepreneurs coming out of UD.
Awesome. So Paul, what enticed you to take that meeting? You're a very busy man, I'm sure, and he's a new entrepreneur.
No, it's actually pretty funny. I take almost every meeting I can. I'm very, very approachable, and people call me all the time. I'm working with another young man at UD right now who was, someone said, hey, you got to call Paul, and he's a very high-end tech guy. I'm not a tech guy at all, but business is business. And it's really, I guess because I've been so helped by other people along the way. Many of the old guys know Fred Sears. Fred Sears was one of my early mentors, and he came to UD and would speak, and he has worked as a banker. Bankers are really important when you're startup to get to know as many bankers as you can, and get ideas around your growth around funding. is really important. But yeah, I take almost every meeting I can do.
Yeah, I was going to say, Stephanie, Paul is amazingly accessible. And honestly, it's a very Delaware trait to have. It's just accessibility. But it's not hard to get in touch. If you're working on something cool and something intriguing, he'll meet. And that's part of what makes him so special, makes the community so special.
Yeah, I take almost every call. Yeah, I don't have a filter or anything, So.
Yeah.
Well, that is good to hear. And I'm sure some of the entrepreneurs sitting in on this meeting are excited to hear that.
They're already writing you an email.
Yeah, well, no, we'll give you my phone number and everything, so it's not a problem.
Yeah.
So, Mac, you seem very confident, and Paul, you seem very approachable. But there are some new entrepreneurs that may be a little hesitant to approach someone of your stature and someone of your success. What advice would you give to a new entrepreneur who's a little bit nervous to step up to the plate?
Well, I mean, if they're really concerned, try to find someone that knows me or Mac or someone. But I mean, they have to get, you got to get strong. So you have to make these calls. You have to just do it. Do it. You can't believe how easy it is to do that here, maybe Delaware again, because we're so small. But people are going to say yes. People aren't going to turn you down. They might not like your idea, but they're not going to say yes about talking to you.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I would also kind of say, Stephanie, that the founder, the entrepreneur, the person trying to get their venture off the ground. I mean, even Bill Gates couldn't build a company staying in his closet, nervous to go out and meet with people and shake hands and get introduced to people. That is a fundamental requirement of building a company, is the ability to make connections and not be afraid to put yourself out there. So to me, it's one of the line items you just have to have. It's one of the boxes you just have to check if you're going to play the game. Like, you have to build some level of comfort in connecting with people, reaching out, kind of being a little bit uncomfortable sometimes, right? Like, that's all part of the game. You have to get used to it.
Yeah, you got to get comfortable to be uncomfortable. I mean, it's just is, and especially if you want to start, you got to get to your bankers right away. You need money to operate. And I tell people you ought to get at least three different bankers. We have great bankers in Delaware. All the banks guys are all easy. The gals, guys, everybody. So it's up to you to make those contacts, and it really works.
There's a question in the chat box a little bit around, is it just for entrepreneurs in the for-profit space, or do you think it also works for entrepreneurs in the non-for-profit grassroots space? And I know, Paul, you can answer that because you've been involved in a lot of that as well.
And we're seeing over the years, many more entrepreneurs who are working in the nonprofit world. So now we talk to both. I mean, obviously they're completely different and, different goals and objectives, but we talk to both sides of that.
Paul, if I can jump in there, they have different missions, but they have the same, to Mac's comment, correct me if you feel otherwise, they need to build relationships. Yep. They have the same cash demands. They just may earn less of it and raise more of it, but it's still about weekly and monthly cash flow to survive and thrive. Would you agree with those?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So you talked about just having to go out there and just having to make those connections and making sure that they have a good banker and a good accountant. That's essential. What else should an entrepreneur have in preparation for making that initial contact? And what's some advice to others who would want to connect? Like, what should they have prepared when they make these meetings?
Well, prepared is the right word. I mean, you really don't want to waste anyone's time. So you better have every aspect of what you're doing and be comfortable enough to, be truthful and just lay it right out.
Yeah, I would give a slightly different perspective too, which is like, on the other end of it, you're never going to have everything fully figured out. You're never going to have a fully furnished 30-page prospectus or pitch deck. And it's like, you just got to get started. You just got to take your first step, reach out. You don't have all the answers, but if you believe in what you're doing and you can talk about what you're doing because you know what you're doing, then like that's all you need is to the small business owners and the entrepreneurs and the nonprofit owners on the call who are looking to kind of bridge that divide between where they are and kind of access to capital resources and connections. It's really just all about, in my opinion, conquering analysis paralysis, like getting stuck thinking about things, waiting for it to be perfect, and just taking the first step and saying, hey, I don't have it all figured out. I'm not exactly even sure if this is the person I need to be talking to, but I'm going to email them and call them anyway, because if I do that enough, I'll ultimately get gravitated towards the right people. And if I have the right intention and my heart's in the right place too, because people can see that, people can sense that. So I don't think that there's I don't think there's a silver bullet, like how do you get started? Well, you got to go, I think it's more like you get started just by taking action and just take that first step. You're not going to have it all figured out. You just got to know enough about yourself and what you're doing for people to believe in you.
Awesome. Thank you. So Mac, what are some tools you would use today, or what you have done differently to create more opportunity in hindsight?
I guess following that, I didn't have sharper technology or a better iPhone or stronger Wi-Fi connections. I just prioritized, I think, reaching out to people and forming a little network, maybe sooner than other people, I guess, in a similar stage in kind of venture development. But one thing that Greg and I, co-founder at Carvertise, just started doing very early on is like when we started Carvertise, Stephanie, like we didn't know what we were doing. Like we printed out, Paul and I are both UD alums. We printed out, I went to the Morris Library, printed out flyers, advertising the opportunity and I just started passing it out. I just started passing out flyers. Like, I guess that you can't really be afraid to talk to people, right? And on the flip end of it, we knew we needed customers. Once we had drivers willing to participate in the opportunity, we just started going to chambers of commerce's, like networking events, ad club events. Like we just started getting out there. That was our modus operandum from day one, was just, we don't have all the answers. Like we're forming this thing and creating it as we go. We got to go out there and meet people, because when we meet people, good things will happen in ways that are hard to quantify and project. Like you just got to put yourself out there in the right circles and kind of trust that process. And even to this day, that's still what I do. That's still what Paul does. Yeah. You still have to show up, and you're going to meet people, and good things are going to happen from it.
Yeah, 90% of it is showing up, and obviously you want to be very positive when you go to these meetings. You want to introduce yourself in the right way. But again, Delaware is pretty easy. There's lots of opportunities to do that. I still do it to this day, and last year was a tough year for it, but here we are. We're ready to get started again, and that's why I wanted Mac and I to be together. To show that this is how you do it.
Awesome.
So there's some.
I was just going to say the same thing you're saying, Peggy.
Yeah. So so Ms. Cade says, what are some good qualities, Paul and Mac, when you're going to meet these bankers or accountants or legal organizations that you need support and services for? What should you look for in approaching them? So you just don't want to approach anybody, right? So that's what the question is.
Well, you know, in a way I disagree. I think you have to approach, a lot of different people. I don't know how, you're going to know to start, but, again, and I would at least look at 3 different bankers, 3 different attorneys, and your personal, after you meet and talk to them, you'll know whether you can work with them or not. And if, you have the same ideas and you guys and gals can gel. I always like to tell people to get 3 bankers, and talk to them, and then try to work over time, to have 3 bankers. You don't have 1 banker because they're all doing different things. And the same thing with attorneys. So over the years, we probably had, 3 to 5 bankers and 3 to 5 different lawyers that we're always working with all the time. And it takes time to build that, but it's really important to start right away. I mean, you really have to start right away, because if you don't get the right funding and you don't get organized around that, you're never really going to be successful.
Yeah, I'll provide a different perspective, perhaps, which is like, for us, we didn't start networking or meeting bankers or lawyers until later on, maybe like 3 years after we started the company. Paul might say we should have talked to him earlier. Maybe for us, it was just really important to get in front of prospective customers. So that's the type of pool that we had to start networking first. And we're advertising and marketing. Paul's in commercial real estate. That's a large difference in industries. So it was very important for him to have access to financing and loans. But in our early days, if we had got a loan too early, we would have self-destructed. If anybody gave us a loan that early in the game.
Wait a second, I gave you a loan.
Wait a second. That was a little bit later, though. And we didn't self-destruct. We grew up. So.
Yeah, because we were watching them carefully.
There's so Pierre Dupont puts in there, and I think talks about the numbers game and meeting as many people, reiterating what you said, but also says in here, it really helps with your pitch, your presentation, to get those investors, business partners, and employees and co-founders around the table to help them refine that. Did you do that, Mac? I mean, did you do that in your process?
Yeah, we definitely had a little roadshow, probably in 2016. And that's when Paul invested as an angel investor in our company. We put a pitch deck together and we said, here's the model and here's why we need funds and here's what we're trying to do with it. But that was in 2015. So 3 years after kind of the seed was planted, and we had about 90,000, maybe 100,000 in revenue at that point. So still very young, very premature. But yeah, I think to ultimately get an angel investment from Paul, from Vance, from Chris and Rob Lucchini, we had to have a plan and show hey, here's where we're trying to go. Here's what we're doing. Because if it was an email, if it was a conversation, that's not buttoned up enough to build confidence that you're going to use capital wisely, or quite frankly, if you can't build a pitch deck when you're asking for hundreds of thousands or millions, are you really going to put the time into building the elements of your company that is going to be required to do it properly? So from this early stage, every time we meet, which we meet on a regular basis, both on phone and in person, and we kind of refine everything. We talk about money and everything, all the time. Yeah. Except Vance and I are at the meetings. We both have different backgrounds, but we both have had large companies. But it's a real good influence on Greg and Mac when they, were able to talk to them. Yeah, hands down. One thing that Greg and I prioritize very early on is if we can't afford to bring the brightest and best people on our team, then we've got to hang around them. And so we definitely prioritized spending time with people like Paul and Vance, who just knew more about building a business, than we did. Because
what you're talking about that you may not be saying the words of is board and advisor development. And that is what you are doing here. And my brother Thayer will talk about that in the nonprofit world, how important it is to have a board that you actually use and that is functional and gives you feedback and comments. And clearly, Mac, you and Paul have that kind of relationship. And that comes in part from the fact that you talked to him very early and kept talking to him. And I'm sure there were others, sorry to make a negative, that you talked to that you didn't talk to a whole bunch more times.
Yeah.
Yes. No question. No question. And there was a lot of young entrepreneurs that came to us and asked the wrong questions and didn't listen to anything we were doing and, blew up and stuff. So I mean, it's a combination of things.
And you'll start winding back the amount of time you give them.
Yeah. But we've built, I mean, it's taken, all these years, we built real relationships and we know exactly what's going on. And I call them all the time. And again, I'm more of the sales guy. I talk to Greg all the time. I probably talk to him every month, and we have long conversations about customers and how to do different things. And
so, we picked up great things. There's no doubt about it.
But they listen. Not everybody listens. A lot of entrepreneurs think they have all the answers. These guys have been wide open. And I remember at one of our meetings a few weeks ago, or months ago now, and Mac was talking about something. And I said, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. I'm just saying, I never heard something.
He probably says that more than once.
So. No, that was the first time. And it's like, hey, come on, that's just terrible.
Well,
we were pretty blunt.
I'll give you a perfect example. Like a real example was this was 2 years ago. We were in a spot financially where we could hire salespeople, and Greg and I walked in to meet with Paul and Vance, and we were like, all right, we need to hire 8 salespeople. And to date, it was just 3 of us selling. And we had our whole logic of hey, this many people end up working out. Here's how fast they get ramped up. Here's where their break even is. And Paul and Vance were like, absolutely not. You need to start with 4. They said 3 maximum 3. And then Greg and I ended up doing 4. And we compromised, and then it ended up becoming 3. And then Vance was cracking up about this in our last meeting. We know trade shows is going to be a large marketing strategy for us. We do very well from a business development standpoint when we are at certain trade shows for certain industries. And we're running Paul and Vance just kind of through our plan of how much money we wanted to spend at these trade shows. And we're saying, for this one, we think we should spend about $15,000. And Vance and Paul said, you need to be spending $50,000, $60,000 in this trade show. So the chairs switched where in this context, they told us to get more aggressive when normally they're telling us to temper down. So it's been a great relationship, and we've learned so much. And it all just started, Stephanie, from just getting out there and making friends and just being uncomfortable with being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
And for us, just trying to tell the truth, and say to the guys, look, trying to train 8 people at the same time, oh my God, it'd be impossible. It's just you couldn't do it. And plus you didn't need that many people. And on the other hand, at a trade show, you want to put a real nice splash out. You don't want $15,000, you have Tootsie Rolls or something on your table. But they listen all the time, and that's what's really exciting about it.
That's a good point. I heard a lot of things. Everything that you're saying is super fascinating. I think helpful for some of our attendees in making sure you're open, you're actually listening to the feedback and taking the feedback and utilizing the time that you're willing to commit. So being both entrepreneurs yourselves and business owners, how obviously your time is limited and you're dedicating time to helping other entrepreneurs. What does that mean for you to be a champion for entrepreneurs?
Well, I mean, I think it's a responsibility for, us as business leaders, us, being active in the community. And we take that really seriously. And I think that, in Delaware, where we're so small, it's really more important than any others. We can network a little bit better. And I think we're trying to push more, especially with the universities, because we've had a tendency to be not as aggressive as a community as like Philadelphia or New York or Washington. And some people like that, but in terms of business, you have to be more assertive, and we have to be more helpful to each person to understand what that means. And we're a little too low key often here.
Can you repeat the question one more time, Stephanie?
Sure. And I can be a little bit more direct with you, Max, since I know that you've stepped up as a champion for a company a business we're working with through our E3 program. Why is it important for you to dedicate your time in giving back?
Yeah, for me, and I mean, first statehood induct is just one. Really, if any entrepreneur reaches out and they're serious and they're really trying to build something and they're asking for help, similar to Paul. I mean, I'm just in a different stage in my career, but I will always be willing to put some time aside. I mean, it might not be tomorrow or next week, but we'll schedule something a little bit out. And I'll give you my candid feedback on where you're at. And, you know, Thair's probably very well used to this, given how many nonprofits he's talked to, is like, some people will take you seriously and listen and stay open right away. And other people, like, you know, that they, you know, that's not really what they wanted. You're not in. So if anybody's willing, and I know Paul feels the same way, anybody who mentors anybody will feel the same way. If you feel like you're being heard and you're listened to, and that the person at the other end of the line is actually trying to improve their situation by listening and learning and taking in what you say, you want to help that person. You'll be okay with giving them more time and opening up more and putting them in touch with more people if they've shown the capacity, if they've shown the ability, if they've proven the ability to just, they're trying to learn, they're trying to grow, and they keep on coming back. And Eric and Clarence, in my opinion, are just a class act. They're a case study of I met with them once because I'm involved in a nonprofit called Teen Sharp. And I was talking to one of the students, and Erica was sitting in on the call, and she started asking me questions about how we started winning corporate clients. And I said, hey, why don't we talk after? And I'll give you some background on what we did. So I met with Erica, and I just said, hey, here's how we started meeting with corporate accounts. And then she just started telling me about how she's meeting with finding clients today. And I just started asking questions about her process, about, you know, going out to customers and meeting them and what it's like, and how is she pricing jobs. I said, how do you know what to price jobs? How many jobs do you need to sell a year to cover your overhead and to make the salary that you and Clarence want to make? And I was asking a lot of tough questions that quite frankly, she couldn't answer at the time. But I think because I asked those questions, she started thinking about them, and then she started working on them. And then she hit me up, 2 months afterwards and was like, hey, can you review our sales, our sales process? And I'm like, yeah, of course. So they came over to the office. We reviewed how they go to their presentation when they go and meet new clients. And we just had a brainstorm. We just ideated. I had no skin in the game, but besides just being happy, seeing them grow, seeing them succeed. And, it was people like Paul and people like Vance, and the list could really go on for Carvertise. There's so many people who played a big role in just helping us get a leg up. But when you see the other person growing and learn, it's not even I went on a sales call with them recently, and I'm learning too as I talk to them, and I'm like, oh, okay, could we have done that a little bit differently? I'm like, Clarence, why did you say that? Or what's going into that pricing? And honestly, I'm learning too by just talking with them in a totally different industry, a totally different business. And it's fun. It's fun. You gotta love the game.
it
You
is fun.
gotta love the game to, like, you know,
Yeah.
just finesse and sustain.
Yeah, if it's not fun, you know, the person you're talking to is going to know right away. You have to really be upbeat and fun.
Yeah, I remember Paul in some meeting, he was talking to, he's like, you know what, guys, you have to have fun. You have to, like, my business partner used to flicker the lights when we were in a
Oh,
meeting.
yeah, I mean, yeah, just because look, it's serious, especially when you borrowed a lot of money, you got to pay it back, and things aren't going well, you know. So you know, it's part of life, but you know, you really have to keep yourself upbeat, and that's an entrepreneur. I mean, you have to be strong, and you have to work at it constantly to look at the positive.
Yeah, and your team is looking at you to set the tempo,
Absolutely.
to set the morale, even when you run into adversity. Like they're looking at you to see how you carry yourself and to see where your mindset and morale is. So, like, it really is like that same type of courage it takes, Stephanie, to just like take a first step and reach out to somebody, even if you're not exactly sure how. Like you need that type of courage of stepping into uncertainty to lead a company as it grows, because you're going to just keep on running into uncertainty. And your team, who wants structure, who wants clarity, who wants to know where they're going, who wants to know how their career rises and throughout a company, they need to feel that you have answers for them,
Absolutely.
and that you know where you're going. So it's a common characteristic, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm going to open up questions from any of our panelists. I know we have some in the chat as well, so I'm going to go through, but.
So I have a really quick question, because you were just talking a little bit about passion and mindset, you know, and that things get hard in the life and the evolution. I'm sure Carvertise went through moments, right, where things got
Plenty
really
of moments.
Yeah.
plenty of moments.
Right. And so what are some of the strategies? Like, what are some of the strategies, Paul, you would advise, and some of the strategies, Mac, you had to use when those moments occurred? Things weren't lining up, money got tight, there were problems, right? What are
You kind of have to take each piece and put them, not try to look at everything, because when, you know, look, we've been through, you know, I mean, I've been doing this for so long, like 4 or 5 major downturns in real estate. I mean, when things really, really went bad. So you had to work on. One of the early projects I did, you know, was one of where literally the housing market, when we were still doing some housing land development, where it was so bad that, you know, there was no one was buying houses. So what do you do? So, you know, we worked hard to come up with a strategy with the builder so that they were able to pay some of our mortgage payments. And then, you know, we went for like a year and a half without any sales, and then worked through. So you take each piece by piece. It's often when it hits you, it's coming at, you know, 20 different ways where you get overwhelmed. So just, you know, you have to look at the most important and just keep working all down through. And over time, you realize that, you know, opportunities come out of some of these really bad things, but you get strong because you work through them, and you succeed, and you keep succeeding, and you build on it. But there's no question it's hard. I mean, because when things are going bad, often it's really rough.
And Peggy, by the way, most of the times it depends on your mindset, but there's always 100 problems going on in like every area of the business or nonprofit at all times. Like, so in my opinion too, I think like the entrepreneur's journey and building a company oftentimes gets glamorized in pop culture. Oftentimes, like, you know, you see the cover of Forbes or Fortune or Inc. and you're like, man, if only, like, I got to start this company and be like that, because look at that, right? And as they say, comparison is the thief of joy many times. But in this, people got to know it's not for everybody. Like for that one star on the cover of Forbes, there's 1,000 corpses behind that person that weren't able to finesse, to it's tough. Like you have to have a super, super high stress tolerance. You have to be okay with uncertainty. Like the person who's sweating over, every little thing going wrong, they're not going to be happy, mentally, like growing a business, because like you have to have this certain kind of fluid framework of mind to be okay with tackling these challenges as they inevitably come. So it does take a certain type of person, in my opinion, who adopts a certain mindset
that they can, do it. And then you build your team around, like, so for our company, everyone knows Shona and the help you get from all this, great team work. And that's what you have to build. And it takes a long time to do that. When you're completely on your own, I mean, it's really brutal.
So I do know we have a couple more questions. I'm just trying to filter through. Cecilia, you had a question. Would you like to ask it directly?
Hi,
Cecilia,
good afternoon.
I see some lettuce.
Yes. Awesome. Yeah, that's one of our mottos. Let us all come together. I actually have a very grassroots, small nonprofit organization called the Village Tree, and I'm so glad you had mentioned about Team Shark, because when I moved out here, I was in AmeriCorps with Team Shark, so I love Team Shark. And it's just all about what you're saying is very key. It's all about networking and getting with the right people and doing whatever you have to do. Lately, I've been finding my challenge is that maybe because I'm just a small grassroots organization and nonprofit, asking for funds has been one of our biggest challenges, just to keep us afloat. And our mission is just to try to teach others how to create self-sufficiency and sustainability. And one of the things is through entrepreneurship. So what I wanted to know is, do you see a divide in the line of dealing with of inequitability with minority-owned nonprofit organizations or other entrepreneurship organization? And where can because these are some of the questions that people are asking me out in the community, where can I go that I can be able to get help that would be able to enhance the ability of, I wouldn't say the underserved or maybe the unserved, or just like not taken seriously, organizations that's not taken seriously. I know that was a lot.
Yeah, well, no, you've asked a really
Great
good
question.
and serious idea here that, you have to get out too. And I think that the more you try, and you have to broad base. We talked about banks. Look, almost all the banks and all the large corporations are looking to help now, especially what we went through this last year.
Exactly.
So I think what you just have to do is, like Max said, get your positive on and get out there and just keep going. And I know you will be successful. I think it's really hard because there's so much going on, but you do your thing and get out and one at a time, and you'll work through it. And I'd be glad to talk to you more. You can call me, and I coach you through whatever. I'd be glad to do it.
I got a Kool-Aid smile now. Thank you so much. Yes, I would like to sit down and have a meeting with you, because I've been getting my ask on. That's ASK.
Yeah,
I've been getting my ask on.
I get it. Yeah.
And also to let other entrepreneurs know what I'm learning. I'm getting stronger with each no I get.
Absolutely. Nope, you're in the right direction. I look forward to working.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cecilia, I mean, I think one of the things that you hit on was kind of pretty broad, right? Of this idea of inequality in entrepreneurship. And I'm sure that's why the 3E organization exists within the Pete DuPont Foundation. But 100% for so many minorities, African American, Latino, the deck is stacked against you from the beginning, right? A lack of resources, a lack of education, a lack of a network, and it is tough. I'm sure there are many sociologists and politicians who have their theories and solutions for how to start building out of that inequality, that divide. But for the minority-owned entrepreneur coming through a situation where resources are more constrained, it requires more manpower. It requires more willpower. It requires more mental strength. That's a fact. It's tougher, right? It's tougher because you have more weight on you thrown on you from the beginning. And that's why when you have organizations like 3E, you have programs like Teen Sharp, what they're trying to do is they're trying to lighten that load, and they're trying to create, a bridge to start creating more equality. But right now, there's no question that that's a systemic issue that cities all across America face.
Right.
Yep.
I appreciate the push that I got from Tatiana. She was like, we're going to make it move, so it's just great working with like-minded people that, actually can see an elephant in the room and see what we can do to work with it. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Cecilia. Great question. And that brings us right back to what Mac was starting to talk about is programs like E3. That's why we created it. We created it because we saw that there is an issue in providing support. And like I mentioned earlier, it works in tandem. E3 specifically works in tandem with Reinventing Delaware to offer that additional support and resources and that wraparound services to help entrepreneurs, specifically those of color, succeed and get what they need to accelerate their business. So thank you for that. And Cecilia, if you haven't already done so, or anyone else who's on the call hasn't already done so, please visit our website to learn more. We're always going to be announcing new information about this new, all the new things that are happening, including the next open application cycles. So we're winding down. Unless there's any other specific questions, Paul and Mac, I'm going to ask you. It was fascinating conversation and a lot of great advice for up and coming entrepreneurs. What's some kind of final takeaways that you would give to an entrepreneur?
It's so loaded.
That's loaded. Let me be specific. An entrepreneur looking for a champion outside of you two. Where can they go? What meetings should they be at? Where should they go? Because you guys are very accessible and very positive, but for those who are afraid to go to anyone else.
No, and I think if they want to start with just calling us or emailing or texting, whatever, and I would give them a half a dozen ideas, but I would start, as I've said often, is with the banks, because the banks are really trying to work better with the communities, and every one of them have a lot of young people that are working now and will be able to spend time. They won't just give you a couple minutes. You'll be able to spend time and you'll learn, and you're going to need that help anyway. So I say at least go to 3 banks, meet with them. They also have their other networks within, and just start there.
Yeah. You just got to get started, right? You got to leave your house. You got to leave your house, leave the comfort of your house, leave your office, go to an event that is relevant to you, right? That's relevant to you, and just, you got to start the process, right? Good things happen. Good things naturally happen when you put yourself out there and meet people, and if Cecilia wasn't on this call today and, she decided to stay in, her room and just keep to herself trying to punch the Excel sheets, she would have never met Paul, and that could lead to a great conversation where Paul says you got to talk to, him or her. So it's just being present, being present, Cecilia. Nice job.
Yeah, I'm on my way out to the garden. We're getting ready to do a community event this Saturday where we're feeding the community. So, I always
Perfect.
learned, dream of fields, if you feed them, they will come. And that's how I meet folks, so we're having a grab and go barbecue at the Village Tree Garden.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments from our panelists or attendees?
There was a question that was in the chat box about the balance between being a working professional and having to pay your bills while you're also keeping your dream alive, and building your business on the side as an entrepreneur. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, you have to do it. I mean, you have to get up at 5 in the morning and then you got to work till 11 at night. You just got to do it. I have a young fellow that I'm mentoring right now who, really wants to do his own business, and he got a great job offer as he's finishing up school. And I'm like, take the job offer. You need the job. You need the job. You'll be able to work on your business, the thing you ultimately want to do. You have to, but having a great job and a base, you learn from it. You won't have the stress of going hand to mouth. But you have to do both things. I mean, we all did multiple things, and sleep and Sunday and Saturday or work days, that's what you do. Yeah, there's no excuses. If you really want to do it, it really, really, as Mac said, it's really hard. You have to do it.
Yeah, there's a book called, I believe, by John Doerr. He's in the venture capital space, but he put out a book called "The Hard Thing About Hard Things," and the premise behind it is there's no easy solution to complex, hard problems that are unique to your situation. And if you're in a situation right now where you want to start your business, but it's difficult to cut out the time because you have to work your other job to pay the bills, to keep the lights on. It's tough. You can't, there's no silver bullet answer to that. You just got to figure out a way to bring it together. So your dream ends up merging with your ability to pay bills. And there's a lot of ways to skin a cat. There's a lot of ways to make that happen. But you're going to have to bum and weave to figure out how to get to that solution given your unique set of challenges.
Yep.
That's how I look at that. But that's a common thing you hear, right? Is like, I want to start this, I want to start that, but I'm working a 9 to 5. And so that's a common dilemma. That's a common dilemma.
You just gotta really get functional about your time and just work.
Yeah.
I would say, I'll tell you who I'm most interested in hearing and is what would you recommend to FAIR or Renata with the hundreds of nonprofits that you see from Wilmington who are asking, what can I do? How do I get out there? What do you see? What do they tell you, and what do you see as the successful ones do versus the ones who don't go places, what they didn't do?
That's a topic for another day. I don't think I can cover that in 2 minutes. Thank you for the ask. And that's a great lead in. We will do that on a future date. But thank you.
Are you running for office now?
I agree, but there are some common themes, and one of the key ones is going out there. I mean, one of the hardest things for a nonprofit leader like me when COVID hit was, and my team knows this, my entire life changed because I would get up at 5, and by 7:30, I was actually on the streets of Wilmington getting stuff done, talking to people, and then I would end at 10 p.m. talking to people. So it's being out and about and being passionate and being engaging. And there's a power in sidewalk deals. Like, you recognize somebody, grab them. It might be that 2 minutes of their time that is gonna change the trajectory of your organization. But I agree with FAIR. There's a 2-hour session in that one.
Well, Well, we look to be involved with that discussion.
Excellent. Thank you both for making the time today. Great wisdom and advice.
Well, you're welcome. It was a lot of fun. And I was really happy to get Mac connected here where we started. I think that's just kind of good luck.
Yeah. Now we had fun
Yeah.
conversation and fun conversation. If anybody needs to reach out to either me or Paul, reach out to me directly. Stephanie, you can forward them my email. And
same with me.
It's a community. It takes a village, and that's the type of business people that you have to have is not these greedy, grubby capitalists without a soul, as I think often gets portrayed. But you have to care. You have to care. You have to want to see. You have to do business with heart. You have to want to see people win. And there's a lot of pride and joy that comes out of just seeing other people grow.
Absolutely.
Mac, it's our motto. It takes a village to raise a village. Yes, absolutely.
And when
We
you
need plenty of lettuce to feed them.
Yes. We got it. Come on.
And when you totally stressed out, I bought for my entire team Pinch Me Dough, the latest product from our own Delaware-based company from Lewis, a woman-owned business.
Awesome.
It's awesome.
Nice. Yes, pinch me.
Yep, Pinch Me
Take us
Dough.
out.
Well, thank you guys again very much. I can't say it enough. We really appreciate your time and all of the wisdom that you shared. It's been a fascinating discussion. Like I mentioned, this will be available on our website, and I will, Paul and Mac, pass along any requests. I've gotten a few that I've been checking on the side. So we're very excited to have that support from you. So we appreciate it. I know the entrepreneurs listening in are appreciative as well.
Well, thank you all. Yep.
Happy to help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Everyone enjoy your day.
Thanks.
Will do.
Bye-bye.
Same. Yep. Bye.